When I was a kid, I've played the first Sacred for quite a while. In my school days, I got my hands on a disc with the game. I haven't played that many hours back then, but ever since, I kept coming back to this title again and again. First of all, what hooked me was the freedom this hack and slash gave you, because after the intro you were thrown into a massive open and mostly non-linear world where no one forced you to clear the same caves over and over again. And overall, this title stood out thanks to its not-so-standard approach to the genre's formula, which makes sense because the game was developed by Germans. Those games are always unique. Anyone who have played German games knows exactly what I mean. However, I can say I farmed the entire map, even though I played all the characters and played for 200 hours or so. Yet I still never finished the main story. The first game really made some noise. It was praised as one of the best titles of its genre. So the continuation didn't take long. I tried the sequel only when I got tired with the original, but I only ran around for a couple of hours with different characters. So that was basically it. So don't expect any deep expertise from me specifically about the remaster of the second game. Not long before release, the developers published a blog where they talked about their vision for the remaster. Even though the original studio didn't work on this game, because it simply doesn't exist anymore, the update version was worked on by Franz Sterl, one of the original creators of the series. After Ascaron disappeared in 2009, he and several colleagues founded a new company, Sparkling Bit. So in a way, you can still say that the remaster was made by part of the original creators. In the blog, he hints that the remaster isn't just an update of an old game, but a full-fledged new chapter in the series, almost suggesting that in the future we should expect a continuation as well. Overall, the blog left a pretty positive impression, as if Franz truly values his work and is grateful to the players who have supported the games for 20 years. However, only one question is bothering me: if the remaster is any good. Let's start with the remaster updates and the technical side of things. How does it run? The system requirements for PC are incredibly forgiving, so the game should launch even on ancient rigs. On my setup, I had close to 300 FPS at a 2K resolution. Although, to be fair, I'm always surprised when remasters have higher requirements, because I didn't see any major visual changes. They've added native support for ultra-wide monitors, maybe slightly tweaked the lighting, the textures, I didn't find any AI-powered upscaling, but that's basically it. Even the intro cutscenes run in what looks like a stretched 2080 by 720 resolution. I even had the same crashes as in the original game. But as they say, anyone who have survived Gothic and Sacred bugs fears no German game. So realistically, what you're mostly buying here is the time you'd otherwise waste trying to get the original to run on the modern systems. Among other changes, they've also made a new interface. But we'll get to that later. Oh, I have a lot to say about it. If we're talking about consoles, I saw in some reviews that the situation there is much worse. First and foremost, this applies to the PS5. I don't really want to buy another copy just to check, so I advise waiting for patches if you're planning to play on that platform, purely for the sake of a pleasant experience. Meanwhile, on the Steam Deck, which doesn't even have a verified status yet, everything plays perfectly. It even instantly detected controller input. Of course, keyboard and mouse are much more comfortable, but that option exists too. Now a bit about the content itself. Turns out the new version cuts a big chunk of the original's features. Specifically, there is no PvP, no free boss farming mode, fewer quick access slots for weapons and skills, as well as several smaller things. If I'm already used to multiplayer limitations in remasters, the other cuts definitely raise some questions. Casual players like me probably won't be bothered, but it's still weird. At least with the updated version for 20 bucks, they also give you the original right away if you didn't own it. Overall, I'd rate the remaster as a lazy attempt to make some extra cash off a formerly legendary series. There is some benefit to the updated version because, as I already mentioned, launching the first two original games on modern systems is a whole quest in itself. I'd like to have not only the ability to run the game without issues, but also real bug fixes, crash fixes, maybe some new content. And if we're already here, let's finally move on to the game itself. And traditionally, we'll start with the visual side. If we talk about the game in terms of visuals, no matter how you stretch those textures or tweak the lighting, it's immediately obvious that the game is nearly 2 decades old. I already showed comparisons, and to me, the updated version doesn't really differ much from the original. So if we are going to break it down, I'll basically have to talk about the classic graphics. But first, let's actually talk about the user interface, the one thing they really did change. I'll show footage from when I first opened the menus. Please note that I have played the second Sacred before. Even though it was a long time ago, I am familiar with the core design concepts. But instead I sat there like a stunned deer staring at the screen. I'll put the new and old interfaces side by side for a better comparison. It feels to me like the equipment menu was remade to look like Titan Quest 2, as if they wanted to unify those games visually. The old interface is, in some places, honestly more convenient and easier to read, even though it's far from perfect too. It's too stylized. After a couple of hours I got used to the new one, and I even understood why they've changed the look of some menus, but for a while the interface straight up irritated me. I'm not the only one who isn't happy with the update. The game was heavily criticized for it. Those damage labels and item descriptions look like they were drawn in paint. It's really embarrassing. At the same time, the visuals themselves, despite being clearly outdated, are still appealing to me. Yes, they're far from perfect. There are plenty of, let's call them rough edges. Some animations are especially hilarious. And again, all of that was supposed to be polished in the new version. But we got what we got. Still, the local landscapes have such a strong 2000s atmosphere that you instantly get childhood flashbacks. Everything looks so colorful, saturated, bright, interesting. Sometimes the grass tilts as you walk by. Somewhere cows are grazing, somewhere villagers are working in the fields. And then night falls. All of it is wrapped in lighting and shadows that were quite solid for that time. As a result, you just want to stay in this game. Everything here feels kind of homely, and everything is filled with a level of detail and love you simply can't ignore. Honestly, this applies to many German games. They love highlighting everyday life in this vibrant way. Another fun detail is the wider camera angle. In the second Sacred, it's much more enjoyable to play as a ranged character because you're not boxed in by narrow horizontal screen borders. Long story short, I got a ton of enjoyment when I returned to this world again. And it's pretty funny how the level design makes absolutely zero sense. Usually hack and slash or ARPGs are divided by regions or at least by some logic, behind where you're in a forest or in a snowy mountains. Here that's kind of present too, but it feels like the levels were made by vibes. The devs just felt like putting a tree here and then a pig over there. It's vibey, what can I say? But the real star of this game, visually, is the absolutely cursed hyperbolic ragdoll system. I'm dead serious, no jokes or gimmicks, it's my favorite aspect of the entire game.
Leave this world!
Is my throat burning? What have you done?
Murder! He killed him! Stop him!
Another offering.
Every time I almost burst out laughing watching how the physics objects and bodies sometimes fly apart. This is 2000's aura. Does it look weird? Absolutely. Can even the updated version compete with modern hack and slashes or ARPGs? Probably not. The graphics are obviously outdated and it wasn't really changed in the remaster. This is the game you feel. But if you want to experience that saturated 2000s vibe, trust me, the remaster will deliver it. The situation with the sound is pretty similar. It's so bad that it's actually good. No, everything plays back normally, and in the 10 or so hours I've spent here, just like in the original, I didn't run into any issues. The thing is something else entirely. Everything here is hyperbolized to an absurd degree. This out-of-place music, the absolutely idiotic lines from our protagonists and other NPCs, the wildly loud sound effects. For example, take the BFG of the Seraphim. First of all, why are certain sounds dramatically louder than others? It doesn't serve any informational purpose at all. And second, what's with all those extra effects, explosions, splashes? They definitely don't make it any cooler, that's for sure. The only really cool sound feature in Sacred 2 is when you pause the game and go do something else. After some time, your character starts calling you to return and take action. It's quite a unique way to force me to keep playing, but everything else about the audio is just a cringy spectacle. So unserious that it becomes funny. Definitely a like from me. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Sacred is a pretty unique game. It's a traditional hack and slash where you spend more time slicing monsters than you make in builds. However, this series managed to create a unique approach to leveling and farming. For example, abilities aren't given to you as you gain experience. You have to farm them as items. Meanwhile, with new levels you upgrade attributes and skills like melee or ranged combat. This opens the door to building your characters in tons of different ways and potentially keeps them always relevant. Usually there are a lot of abilities and they're divided into 3 branches. Mostly combat skills, magic and something else. You can also combine them into combos, which further increases build potential. On top of that, Sacred has always stood out thanks to its characters, which in theory makes each playthrough quite unique. Now I'll briefly describe all the characters for those who never played or already forgot. One of the icons of the series is the Seraphim, the sort of techno-angel warrior women in heels who wipe out demons left and right. In the first game they were one of the top classes thanks to abilities that over the years were never actually balanced. Here they were reimagined a bit, but the class is still pretty strong. You can build them around melee combat, magic, futuristic weapons, in the second game they only gave you the BFG, or even turn them into hybrids. I've always enjoyed playing the Seraphim, but their builds aren't exactly standard. And since the second game does not let you to refund skill points, one mistake can ruin your build on higher difficulties. Interesting, fun, but I'd recommend picking them only once you really understand the game. Next we've got the Dryad, your typical forest archer. As I said before, this game handles range combat a bit better since you can adjust the camera. The class can't offer anything unique. Attack skills, some forest magic and voodoo curses. I'm surprised she doesn't have the typical wolves or ants you can summon. Not a bad class, but nothing special. Compared to the truly unique heroes from the original, she's just a regular archer. Next is the Shadow Warrior, a reincarnated dude with necromancy abilities. In practice, he's just a very basic tank with a sword and shield who can do a bit of spellcasting. I once played through the game with him and got bored really fast. Incredibly mediocre character. Moving on. Up next is Emperor Palpatine, and I'm not even joking. Inquisitors are the local bad guys who want to conquer the world. They can only choose the dark side. Pretty ironic because it doesn't actually affect anything. In theory, you can complete the same storyline from different sides, except regardless of side, the quests are exactly the same. Even as an Inquisitor, you'll be running around saving cows. No joke. The only thing that changes is the unique god abilities, which are also pretty mediocre. The class itself is built around mixing melee and spellcasting, a pretty interesting character with some funny voice lines. Next is the High Elf, your classic mage. Traditional fire spells, ice mechanics and magical damage. It's worth noting that some of her skills are surprisingly hard to land because of the cursed hitboxes. Interesting that she has a summon, which honestly should have been given to the Dryad. She also have different buffs, auras, and overall is more like a battle mage hybrid. Not bad, let's move on. Next in line is the Temple Guardian, another pretty unique class. Looks like some kind of mechanized Anubis. He plays through a combination of ranged attacks, melee combat, supportive abilities and futuristic skills. It's cool that his arm changes depending on which skill you pick. Definitely an interesting class, but fairly difficult to build cause you need everything at once. And last we've got the Dragon Mage, probably the strongest character, insanely unbalanced. One of his branches lets you play with transformations and just look at how he wipes out everyone. The other branches give you all sorts of magic. There's support, crowd control and all with barely depending on loot, as long as you level that transformation. Highly recommend. An awesome and unique character. As you can see, there are quite a lot of characters. They are pretty different, and each one gives you at least 10 hours of interesting gameplay. Plus, the game practically forces you to run different classes. Sometimes it really feels like certain abilities drop only for other characters, and then you transfer the loot to the shared stash. So whether you want it or not, you'll end up playing several of them. And that's not the last problem. All of this content exists in one single dimension. The quests are the same for everyone, only the starting location differs. There are a lot of quests, but unlike something Titan Quest 2, they're all fetch quests or go clear this area. You won't encounter a single interesting quest, not one. After you run them for the third time, your interest burns out really fast. On top of that, caves don't have their own map like in Titan Quest. The minimap works, yes, but because of the game's labyrinth corridor design, it often misleads you when you go inside somewhere. They could have fixed that in the remaster. The hitboxes are also annoying. Not only do they differ widely from model to model, but you also have to precisely aim with your mouse. And if you don't hold the stand still command, your character starts doing breakdance around enemies. I wouldn't say it ruins the experience, but it definitely creates discomfort. Overall, we should recognize two fundamental traits of the remaster and Sacred 2 as a whole. First, the game is insanely monotonous. This could be said about all hack and slash and ARPG titles, but in this one it's noticeably more than almost anywhere else. You might not see any unique drops at all, and some abilities take ages to level before they become useful. In my opinion, there are very few real changes during progression. A level 10 and a level 40 character differ mostly in stats. You come here purely to turn your brain off. Second, the game is unbelievably outdated, and the remaster does nothing to fix that. If you're a fan of the new Diablo games, if you've played Path of Exile for years, Sacred will bore you to death. You can argue about the quality of the first game, but the sequel was not the best even at release. That's why I dropped it back then. This kind of game is a pretty interesting example for the gaming medium as a whole. Once every 5 to 10 years, this genre goes through a lot of renaissance. A couple of games release and everyone plays them for the next few years until something new appears. We're seeing something similar now. Path of Exile 2 just came out, Titan Quest, now Sacred. For diversifying the genre overall, that's good. As a standalone game, Sacred 2 is not the best choice. As a remaster, it's just a lazy attempt to make money off a once iconic series. Will I play it? Honestly, yes. I think I'll play around as a Seraphim and try to finally finish the campaign, at least once. Can I recommend this remaster? Only if you once played the old version or clearly know what the Thousands games are like. Or if you're too lazy to patch the original. For everyone else, you can skip it.